The stars had never looked so distant. Earth was losing, not in a blaze of heroism, but in silence. The Galactic Council's decree had outlawed full-scale war decades ago, branding it a relic of uncivilized species. Now, conflicts were resolved in designated combat zones, one-on-one, sanctioned duels, streamed across thousands of systems for entertainment and legal settlement alike. Planets didn't fall in bombs and fire anymore. They collapsed in silence, one loss at a time, and Earth had become a punchline. You all talk laws. We talk blood, spat a towering Kranthax war chief during a live broadcast from the council chambers, a sneer twisting his tusked face as Earth's diplomats shifted uncomfortably beside him. It was the 7th loss that month. Entire colonies gone. The galactic crowd cheered. The humans pretended not to flinch. No one wanted to admit what everyone already knew. Earth had no champions. Their fighters were too soft, their hearts too burdened by rules and bureaucracy. At best, they delayed the inevitable. At worst, they died screaming for a planet that barely remembered their names. On the rust-rimmed edge of Galactic Sector 17, in a smoke-hazed cantina, powered by stolen fuel and spite, Asha Aketi sipped a flat drink and tried to disappear. She was tired of false hope, of command briefings that led to nothing, of watching humanity be carved apart, one sanctioned battle at a time. She hadn't worn her Earth badge in over a year. No one out here respected it anyway. But tonight, the room stilled. Even the drunk Vorak at the bar paused mid-snore. Every screen flickered to the same grainy pirate stream, illegal, unsanctioned, raw. The crowd pressed forward, hungry, and Asha saw him, a human, in the pit. Silent, shirtless, eyes dead, fists clenched. Across from him towered a 3-armed Trancorian berserker fresh off 3 sanctioned kills, but the fight didn't last 30 seconds. It was a massacre. The human didn't flinch, didn't breathe wrong. He moved like smoke, brutal, sharp, surgical. And when the Trancorian fell, throat crushed and eyes wide in disbelief, the human didn't raise his fists in victory. He walked away, vanishing into the shadows like a ghost. But Asha Yaketi knew that walk. She'd seen it 6 years ago, on the last day of the last real war Earth ever fought. That man was David Rains, and David Rains was supposed to be dead. Across the solar system, Earth's president gave a press conference, bright lights, forced smiles, tightly rehearsed reassurances. "We will pursue peace through diplomacy," he said, his voice brittle. "Earth has no interest in violating Galactic Code 17.4b. We will not escalate violence." The alien delegates blinked. Their alien blinks. Some smiled. They had already begun drafting ownership contracts for the Pacific territories. And behind them all, watching from the back of the room, arms crossed and jaw tight, stood a man in a faded Earth Force officer's coat, Amir Bello. He didn't clap with the others. He didn't smile. He didn't drink from the offered crystal flutes. He watched the broadcast twice, then 3 times. He froze it on the moment the human fighter's fist snapped the Trancorian's neck like a twig. He whispered one word under his breath, quiet and full of awe: Rains. The last time Earth won a battle, it was because of Rains. And the last time Rains was seen, his own commanders tried to bury him. They said he disobeyed orders, that he went too far, that Earth couldn't be seen as barbaric. But now, the galaxy had changed. Now Earth was out of time. The Council demanded another duel in 3 days. High-stakes winner keeps orbital rights to Earth's last neutral skyport, and Earth had no champion. Or did it? In the dark corner of the cantina, Asha Ikadi stood up slowly, eyes never leaving the replay. She knew what she had to do. Somewhere, in the outlaw rings, a ghost had returned. And if Amir Bello was right, if that ghost was really Rains, then Earth had one last card to play. But it wouldn't be politics. It wouldn't be diplomacy. It would be blood. 5 years ago, the skies above Nigeria base Delta 3 burned red. The mission was classified, blacker than midnight, no insignias, no records. Just whispers in dark corridors and orders that came sealed in heat-proof code. David Rains was Earth Force's finest at the time, sharp, relentless, and utterly loyal. He didn't ask questions when the briefing told him to lead his elite unit into a hidden alien genetics facility, hidden beneath the jungles, near the old coastlines. They were told it was an unauthorized bioweapon site, experimental, dangerous, and possibly holding data that could change the fate of Earth's standing in the Galactic Council. The operation began like clockwork: drop in, breach the compound, extract the data cores. But then the screaming started. Inside, Rains found no weaponized beasts or combat clones, just children, alien-human hybrids, young and terrified. Some were barely walking, others were hooked to tubes and monitors, blinking slowly through sedatives. Before Rains could call for a stand-down, the airstrike orders came. Burn the site, erase all traces. His team was split. Some refused, some followed. A firefight erupted, not with the enemy, but with each other. Rains tried to shield the children, but in the chaos, one stray missile from above tore through the ceiling, burying half his team alive. When the smoke cleared, half the unit was dead. Most of the children were gone, and Rains was alone, his leg crushed, his cums jammed, his face bathed in blood, not all his own. Back at command, General Marcus Ketterman needed a scapegoat. He buried the mission, filed it under rogue action, claimed Rains went feral, unstable, disobedient. The report read, responsible for 12 military deaths and breach of interstellar ethics. They stripped his name, erased his file, and left him to rot. And rot he did. Present day, David Rains is a ghost in the ruins of post-war Dakar, a city once bright with tech and promise, now little more than scrap metal towers and sunken roads swallowed by sand. He lives behind a broken refinery on the edge of the dead zone, surviving on fight pits, cheap synth alcohol, and a constant, unrelenting ache in his leg that never lets him sleep more than 2 hours a night. Locals call him Blackjack, not for cards, but because his fists knock opponents into blackout. He never talks, never drinks with others. His home is a rusted container with a cot, a gun, and a photograph of a unit that no longer exists. He doesn't believe in redemption, doesn't even believe in survival. Every bruise he earns is one more reason not to wake up tomorrow, until Asha Akedi walks into his ring. She doesn't speak like the others. She doesn't flinch when he growls. She waits until the crowd clears, then tosses something at his feet, a patch, faded, blood-stained. From Nigeria base Delta 3, you're not the only ghost, she says. Rains doesn't pick it up, doesn't look at her, but his knuckles go white around his cup. You want justice, or just pain? She asks him, low and calm, using old Earth Force slang only veterans would know. Because I've got both. But only one leads somewhere. That night, Bello shows up. No fanfare. Just a coat, a flask, and a look that's aged 10 years in 5. He doesn't ask forgiveness. Doesn't offer explanations. Just opens a worn datapad and flips to a council notification. One sanctioned duel, 48 hours. If Earth wins, they pick the next battle's location, terms, and warrior. If they lose, well, they've already lost everything else. You don't owe anyone anything, Bello says. Except maybe yourself. Rains doesn't answer. But the next morning, his cot is empty. The photograph is gone. And someone, somewhere, whispers that Blackjack is headed off-world again with a limp, a scar over his left eye, and fire behind it that hadn't been seen since Delta 3 turned to ash. The broadcast arrived in the dead of night, not through official channels, but blasted across every galactic media stream simultaneously, a formal war challenge sanctioned by the Galactic Council, sealed with the sigils of the Threxenvor Alliance. One name was spoken for the enemy, Vernak, the champion of 6 systems, undefeated in over 80 sanctioned duels. The message was brutal, and Clearith must provide a fighter to meet him in the next prime combat, or forfeit claims to 3 of its last viable colony worlds, Kepleth Ray, Borealis 9, and Lagos Prime. The world reacted in chaos. Protests flared. News anchors trembled. The president issued a rehearsed address, blinking nervously as he declared Earth's commitment to peace and diplomacy. "We will not escalate," he said, lips tight with fear. "We will honor the Council's process, but will not indulge bloodsport." Behind the scenes, the cabinet erupted in fear and blame. Earth had no sanctioned champion, no time, and no public will to fight. But Emir Bello had no patience for politics. Deep beneath Old Geneva, in a defunct military rail tunnel, he and Asha, Ekadi, moved in silence, under falsified clearance codes purchased with blackmail and memory-scrubbed favors. They smuggled David Rains onto an off-the-books Earth Force transport ship bound for an orbital training facility once used during the Old Wars. The moment Rains stepped off the deck, the air changed. Gone was the swagger of the pit fighter. In its place stood a silent, limping man staring at rows of high-G endurance rigs and load spar platforms, like they were ghosts from a past that refused to stay buried. Bello gave him no speeches, only a look, a training chip, and a room. For the next 7 days, Rains fought mostly himself. His reflexes were slower now. His leg couldn't handle full-impact drills. The alien physiology protocols were stacked against him. Most Council combat was tailored for species with triple lung systems, heat-resistant dermal plating, or psionic reflexes. Rains had none of that. Just human bones, a fractured spine, and muscle memory hardened by betrayal. Bello worked him, quietly adjusting stances, rewiring old techniques, ignoring the winces Rains couldn't hide. But it was Asha who did the digging. She couldn't rest. Something about the challenge didn't feel random. One night, while Bello and Rains trained under flickering lights, she broke into an old Earth Force data vault buried beneath the Nairobi archives. It had been sealed for over 4 years, access denied to all but senior council. Inside were redacted war logs from Nigeria-based Delta 3. As she pieced through them, something snapped inside her. The orders Rains followed, the ones he was blamed for, were real, signed by General Ketterman, clear as blood on steel. They had known about the alien children. The Council had ordered silence. Earth had covered it up to prevent diplomatic embarrassment. And worse, Ketterman had received personal commendation bonuses in the aftermath, rising to vice chair of the Earth Council Coalition. Rains hadn't gone rogue. He'd obeyed. He just survived long enough to become inconvenient. The betrayal lit a fire inside her, burning colder than rage. Asha began to translate and decrypt everything: footage, audio logs, orders scrubbed from existence. This wasn't just about the fight. This was about a nation lied to, sold out in exchange for status in a galactic empire that viewed Earth as a child species playing adult games. Meanwhile, far above Earth, in a floating gravity ring training complex orbiting Gliese Prime, the alien gladiator Vernak ran full speed across a zero-G course while sparring with 3 psionic drones. He moved like a storm of bone and steel, laughing between strikes. "So," he sneered to his handlers, "they send one man again, a limping one. You humans never learn. Still bringing knives to a mind war." He spun and drove his elbow through a drone skull. "This won't be a fight. This will be a lesson." Back on the ship, Rains stared into a cracked mirror, wrapping his damaged leg with reinforced kinetic mesh. His breath was shallow. His hands were steady. He didn't speak, but somewhere inside, something had begun to wake up, a memory not of survival, but of purpose. And across the galaxy, Earth held its breath. One name, one fight, One nation left to believe in a man they had already buried once. The nightmares came in waves, unrelenting, coiled like smoke around Rain's ribs until even breathing felt like betrayal. In the isolation of the orbital ring's gravity mod training bay, he began to see them, his old unit. Shadows wearing the names he could never forget. Grant, Zhao, Blue Mendoza. Their faces twisted in pain, covered in blood and ash, whispering accusations through shattered mouths. You left us, one spat. You followed the orders. You should have died with us. Rain swung at nothing, fists cracking air, screaming until the alarms triggered, and Bello stormed in. Bello pushed harder after that, ignoring the signs, the trembling hands, the 1,000-yard stares. Pain is nothing if you don't move through it, he growled. You want to win or not? But Rains broke. Midway through a reflex drill, Bello shouted at him, called him weak, called him afraid. Rains snapped. No control, just fury. He tackled Bello through the sparring grid, fists hammering down like thunder until blood painted the walls. Bello didn't fight back, just held him, whispered, "It's not your fault." The words meant nothing until Asha grabbed Rains by the jaw, forced him to see her eyes, and said, "They broke you. That doesn't mean they own you." Her voice cut through the madness like a wire through bone. Rains froze, shaking, gutted, and in the silence that followed, he didn't cry, but he didn't throw another punch either. While the team tried to hold together the fragments of Rain's mind, Earth's darker machines spun into motion. Now, Chief Earth Delegate to the Council, sat in a polished ivory office on Luna Prime and watched an encrypted feed of the training ring. When he saw Rains very much alive, very much fighting, his face turned to stone. He made one call. The transport to Combat Station Delta 5. Make sure it goes dark in hyperspace. Pilot error, no debris. A shadow agent nodded. The ship manifest was quietly updated. Rain's survival was no longer an asset. It was a liability. But Asha was 2 steps ahead. She had been piecing together Council Tribunal archives and backdoor diplomatic correspondences for weeks. When she saw Ketterman's authorization code on a security override flag, she knew. She didn't wait for orders. She flew directly to the UN Tribunal on IO3, posing as a diplomatic aide, and forced her way into the archives chamber where Ketterman was meeting a trade envoy. "I know what you did," she said without fear, dropping a printed copy of the Nigeria-based Delta Tiga orders on the table. Ketterman didn't deny it. He leaned back, studied her. Then he offered her everything Earth Prime citizenship, 10 million credits, and full funding for her medical clinic in Lagos. "We both know Earth is collapsing. You want to save lives? Take the deal. Help your own people." This Rain's fantasy doesn't end well. She looked at the datapad, thought of the mothers who never knew what happened to their sons. The children left buried in alien sand. She looked him in the eyes and said, "You built your world on dead men. I'm done burying them for you." She walked away, and in that moment Ketterman knew Rains wasn't his real problem. She was. Back in orbit, final prep began. Rains stood alone in the Zero-G armory, staring at the exosuit made for him, custom-fitted, plated in scarred titanium alloy, unpolished. He strapped the support brace onto his left leg, felt the whine of the servo motors engage. Bello approached quietly, bandaged, watching him with something close to respect. "You ready?" Rains didn't look back, just nodded. "I'm not fighting for Earth," he said softly. "I'm fighting to finish what they started." And as the combat transport powered up, roaring toward a council-sanctioned arena, lit like a cathedral of war, a man the world had once buried, now carried every scar into the light, not to be saved, but to make sure no one else burned alone. The arena was unlike anything Rains had ever seen. Colossal, ancient, floating at the edge of a dying star system, built from obsidian alloys and carved bone, surrounded by orbiting satellites streaming the fight live to billions across the galaxy. Flags of every council species flew high, except Earth's, which fluttered, half-raised, and already forgotten. The crowd roared, chanting in alien dialects, thirsting for a spectacle, not justice. When David Rains entered the ring, he wore no armor, just stripped-down combat fatigues. A cracked Earth emblem burned into the back of his shirt, like a ghost he refused to shed. His limp was visible, his face carved by time and failure. Across from him stood Vernacta, alien champion bred for war, nearly 9 feet tall, scales laced with metal, a triple-jointed exoskeletal structure gleaming with genetic perfection. His neural helmet glowed with synced psionic pulses, amplifying reflexes and reading Rain's movements before he even made them. The fight began with a storm. Rain struck first, but was instantly countered, flung across the arena like a toy. He hit the ground hard, his shoulder dislocating, blood spattering across the sand. Vernek laughed, circling him with a predator's ease. You fight like your leader's soft, full of words and weakness. Rain spat blood and stood again. The next blow cracked his ribs. The one after that left his vision doubled. Still, he rose, again and again. The crowd began to shift confused. This was not war. This was a man absorbing punishment, like it was the only language he knew. Behind the arena walls, Asha Yaketi moved through shadows and encryption protocols, fingers shaking as she activated the final step in her plan. She'd decrypted Ketterman's confession, the voice file recorded during his private briefing to Earth's Strategic Council, where he admitted to falsifying the mission logs, ordering the Delta III strike on children, and branding Rains a traitor to protect Earth's political image in the Council. We had to make an example, Ketterman's voice echoed. He was expendable. Asha didn't just leak it, she projected it. Every Council channel, every ship, every tribunal data feed. The broadcast hijacked the arena itself, appearing on screens mid-fight. For 20 seconds, the galaxy listened in silence. Then all hell broke loose. Protest alerts flared. Delegates rose from their seats. Council members called for emergency review of Earth's moral legitimacy. The Earth President's face paled live on screen. Ketterman vanished from the tribunal floor. Earth teetered on the edge of complete diplomatic collapse, lest the man in the ring could shift the tide. Rains rose once more, blood pouring from his mouth, his right eye nearly sealed shut. Vernak sneered. You think truth matters here? He said, stepping forward for the final blow. It ends the same. But Rains didn't retreat. He reached down and pulled something from beneath the arena, dust-rusted. Broken chain from the ceremonial wall, once decorative, now forgotten. He looped it around his fists, felt the weight of it, of every memory it symbolized. With no armor, no psionics, no enhancements, he moved, fast, low, brutal. He took 3 more hits, ducked a 4th, and then drove the chain into Vernak's neural helmet with everything he had. Sparks flew. The helmet cracked. Vernak staggered, eyes wide, his predictive link broken, his balance thrown. Rains didn't let up. Left, right, elbow, chain. He climbed the monster's chest and drove the chain into his skull. He climbed the monster's chest and drove the chain into his skull like a man digging a grave. The final roar was silent, the kind of silence that echoed. Vernak collapsed, not dead, but defeated, utterly, absolutely. The crowd stood frozen. Then, slowly, they erupted. Not for Earth, not for politics, but for the man who should have died years ago, who rose from a planet already forgotten, and won. Not for redemption, not even for revenge. For the friends he buried with no flag, no ceremony, no name. In the end, no one remembered the weapon, only the man who held it. Vernak lay motionless, a heap of engineered muscle and shattered pride, his neural helmet cracked and flickering, mouth agape in stunned unconsciousness. The arena lights dimmed in reverence, then pulsed red signal of victory. Rains didn't raise his fists. He didn't kneel. He stood, bleeding, back hunched, chest heaving with every jagged breath, and raised one trembling hand not in triumph, not for Earth, but as if claiming a moment that had long been stolen from him. The crowd, confused at first, erupted not in cheers, but a stunned, hushed awe, respect earned, not by politics or patriotism, but pain, endurance, and something rawer than either, truth. The council adjudicator moved to raise Earth's flag, by default. But Rains turned his head, eyes like iron. "Don't," he rasped. Then, slowly, with every step echoing louder than any anthem, he walked to the center of the arena, unclasped his dog tags, and laid them on the floor beside Vernon. Fallen form. He didn't salute, didn't bow. He turned his back on the council, the arena, the crowd, and walked out under his own power, his limp slower now, but his spine straighter than it had ever been. Behind the scenes, Earth's delegation scrambled. Cameras caught Asha being seized by Earth's security forces, her arms restrained, face calm. They accused her of treason, of leaking classified intel, of destabilizing diplomatic infrastructure. But the galaxy had already made its decision. Council channel broadcasts were flooded with one demand: her immediate release. People called her the truth translator. Petitions stormed across 1,000 systems. Protest ships surrounded Earth's delegation cruiser. She wasn't the traitor anymore. She was the witness. Bello didn't wait for permission. He confronted Ketterman in the Lunar Embassy's private council suite, slammed the confession logs onto the polished table, and stared through the man who once commanded them all. "He didn't come back for you," Bello said, voice low, shaking, with contained fury. "He came back to spite you. You built a world that tried to erase men like him, and he beat it anyway." Ketterman didn't respond. He simply removed his diplomatic pin and walked out the back, already a relic of a system cracking beneath its own weight. As Earth's flag was quietly removed from the combat roster in shame, David Rains was already gone, vanished into the orbital smuggler lines, unregistered, unsanctioned, unreachable. Some said he returned to Dakar, others to the outer belts, where the old war children still cried in sleep. No one really knew, but his final image, the blood, the broken face, the silent defiance spread like wildfire. It wasn't just a moment. It was a mirror. Soldiers wore his silhouette on arm patches. Rebellion groups broadcast his final stance during recruitment drives. On backwater colonies and isolated mining stations, his chain-wrapped fist was painted. On walls, with 3 words. Still, he stood. He hadn't won for Earth. He had won for himself. And in doing so, he gave back something the galaxy thought it had already buried: dignity, not built on flags or lies, but the courage to never kneel again. The war was long over, at least on paper, but its echoes still shaped the lives of those born beneath its shadow. In a dusty classroom at the Lagos Military Preparatory Academy, a young cadet sat alone after lights out, watching the final moments of David Rains' sanctioned duel on repeat. The blood, the chain, the unflinching defiance etched forever into galactic history. The other kids whispered about him like a ghost story, but this cadet leaned forward, eyes wide, whispering aloud. Who was he really? No one answered. Not yet. Thousands of miles away, Asha Akedi stepped through the overgrown ruins of Delta 3. Now a restricted zone reclaimed by wind and silence. The trees had grown again, twisted, tall, indifferent to memory. Beneath a shattered one, where the earth still bore the scars of bombardment, she placed a marker, simple metal, no ceremony, just words engraved by her own hand, for those they tried to erase. No names, just presence, just defiance. The tribunal had ended weeks earlier. Ketterman's public disgrace was complete, his medals stripped, his retirement rescinded, his face broadcast on every screen as Earth's emblem of betrayal. Asha's testimony was precise and unflinching, every detail a scalpel slicing through decades of silence. She didn't ask for vengeance. She asked for truth, and the galaxy gave it to her. In the vacuum that followed, Amir Bello rose not as a hero, not as a politician, but as a symbol that systems could break and rebuild. At 34, he became Earth's youngest war delegate in Council history. His first act wasn't a speech, it was a policy, a new code for soldier accountability, transparency, and survivor restoration. No more ghosts, he said. Not on my watch. But not all stories end in courts or classrooms. On the edge of the galaxy, in a rusted outpost orbiting a red dwarf no longer mapped, a bare-knuckle fight pit hissed under sodium lights. A young fighter, raw and full of rage, slammed his fists into an older opponent, wild but without aim. From the shadows, a hooded man leaned against the wall, his left leg stiff, one eye clouded, but alive. He didn't interrupt, didn't coach, just waited. When the fighter finally collapsed onto the mat, spitting blood and curses, the hooded man stepped forward. His voice was gravel, low, slow. You punch with anger, he said. Try punching with memory. The boy looked up, confused, and the man turned away without waiting for thanks. No one knew his name, but on some mining moons, they whispered, about a drifter who didn't fight for credits, who trained only those willing to bleed for something greater than survival. They said, he taught silence, taught stillness, taught how to stand when standing was all you had, and in quiet corners of the galaxy, a symbol endured, not a flag, not a face, but a story. One man, one fight, one nation built from the bones of forgotten soldiers and the steel will of a man who refused to kneel. He was never just a weapon, he was the unit. He always had been.